Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. Before I begin this video, I'd like to remind people that nobody has been a better advisor and a better king for women and everyone else, but specifically women, than I have. No one has pointed the way in a more powerful way than I have. So it is stupid to think that I'm magically misogynistic or something. Just because I hold you to God's standard, to the standard that God holds you to, doesn't mean that I'm wrong or hateful in a bad way or anything negative. With that being said, let's talk about the Thom Hartmann show. This gentleman from who's a former FBI agent, this white gentleman who infiltrated racist organizations and shared some insights, some very helpful and logical insights on that person's show. And he brought up that police historically enforce the racial hierarchies in society. And I brought this up many times myself, right? Law and order. And again, some police officers are nicer than others, what have you. This video is not about bashing police. It's about talking about the institutions and processes in our society and how they're trying to stigmatize me. Obviously, that person infiltrated a lot of white supremacist organizations. He brought up the fact that they're not keeping an effective tally, at least a tally that he has access to, a tally that's released to the public in regards to white supremacist acts. There are a lot of hate groups in society, and it goes deeper than just white supremacy. I said it many times. It's white supremacy, it's Jewish supremacy, it's LGBT supremacy, it's token minority unfairness as well. It's a massive system of unfairness where evil reigns in the minds and hearts of all the rebels. This gentleman talked about how white supremacists are international. I brought this up many times. I said white supremacists aren't so much nationalists. They often just call themselves nationalists. White nationalists, white separatists. They are globalists. They just have a different faction than the globalists that come to mind, right? They're not China and Russia, where they're not so obviously white supremacists. They're the globalists that talk about nationalism, who want to integrate nationalism into the global agenda in a way that is clearly Western, white, and racist. Even in Russia, they're perhaps most pronounced, overtly racist grouping is neo-Nazis, right? And they come from Western Europe, right? The ideology comes from Western Europe, and the Nazis raped a lot of women in Russia and vice versa, and so they have, and they bring up, mind you, their common ancestry to some degree. No offense to anybody. Okay. So as we look at this beast called white supremacy, we must know that part of how it operates is it stigmatizes anyone who would rise up against it as uncontrolled opposition, as well as stigmatizing people who are controlled opposition. So people who are uncontrolled opposition have a tougher time making their point. So they can confuse what's going on, right? Set is a deity of confusion, Baal is a deity of confusion, Zeus, Jupiter, they're deities of storms, chaos, confusion, rape, unfair control, what have you. Hitler saw himself as a neo-Roman and often depicted Nazis as new Knights Templars. Look it up. And so when you see these groups that are labeled terrorist groups, Hamas and ISIS and Al-Qaeda, groups that I have no affiliation with whatsoever. However, I've brought up many times that it is the global system that creates terrorists. They're like Frankenstein. You created them. And some of them are some of the most well-meaning people in society. I'd go as far as to say that. I don't approve of anyone who isn't obeying God through me. But I will say that is what I found in my research into so-called terrorist organizations. And I say it that way because governments terrorize people with the best of them. and historically. What Muslim terrorist organization, for example, would compare to the Nazis, or Stalin's terroristic rule, or the Ku Klux Klan for that matter, has infiltrated the people who were in the Klan. Their families have maintained a lot of those sentiments, moods, behaviors, cultures, what have you, and they've infiltrated like every institution in America. So it's stupid to cite jaywalking while people are starving to death all over the world, so to speak. It's stupid to cite petty theft when the major problem when it comes to economics is the unfair distribution of wealth and how it plays out and so on and so forth, and the unfair tax rates and policies of the governing class and the governments of the world. So I'm not going to join the developed nations and anyone else in the unfair trampling of these so-called terrorist organizations, while at the same time I will express my disagreement with them. Absolutely, I disagree with Hamas, I disagree with the IDF, I disagree with the Mossad, I disagree with ISIS and Al-Qaeda. But there are some phrases that they use that they're being designed to stigmatize me. The phrase heroic martial arts. Where else do you hear that phrase being used? Why is it somebody who's shaped like a crypto Jew, Abu Obadiah, and his name's Obi, has Oba in his name? A-B-U. In other words, A-boo. They're saying boo to me, the Alpha. And he's a moon temple sort of mannerisms, right? It's that slow moon-like mannerisms. Reminds you of the moon. The kind of calm mannerisms to reflect the nature of people who worship the moon, which is more calm, where the sun is more vibrant than the moon is. It's more alive. It's not a coincidence. The word Yah refers to Law, aka Yah, an ancient Egyptian deity, a pagan deity. And that's how you people are using the word. It's like some kind of greedy pagan Egyptian trying to cheat everybody. So I have mixed feelings about him using that phrase. I can respect that he realizes that phrase is important. Heroic martial arts. I can respect that he understands that, or whoever put him up to it. I can't respect the process of trying to play me out like a villain, trying to demonize me when I'm the Son of God, the most angelic, the King of the angels, at God's right hand. You see what I'm saying? That's not fair. And he goes on to use other words like the word pyramid and some other phrases. And I took like a bunch of screenshots of the video. You know, even though people might say, well, he has all these screenshots of this terrorist on his phone, because you're trying to stigmatize me with that person's speech. So they're trying to stigmatize me with the victory speech of Abu Obaidah. And the word Obaidah has the word Obi scrambled in. Obi meaning king, heart, hut, essence, center, temple, core. Kuro Obi meaning black belt. And it starts with Oba, which is another way to say king in the Igbo language. Is Oba. Oba is also a king. Now there might be a nuance between the two words. I'm not sure about that part. Okay. So they're trying to stigmatize me with his victory speech because I too have proclaimed victory in my top martial arts challenge. That even, oh, this is weird, right? You got these guys, two motorcycle guys driving in circles here. You know, a guy in all black, and they're wearing all black, and there's a guy in all black just walking from the bank here. Okay, yeah, now there's three of them. Well, this is quite the display. I mean, why would they do that? I've never seen anyone do that in my life. It seems to be some kind of coordinated distraction. Okay, anyway, like I was saying, they're trying to draw parallels between that. And just like when they change my voice and speech patterns, sometimes they try to make it so I sound like a minister or maybe borderline Farrakhan or something. Or they try to draw various parallels, and it's part of their hidden in plain view game that they're playing. I'm not playing that game, and I do not consent to playing that game. Okay? It's more important for me to get this information out there than to try to make sure that my voice is sound when I do, or my speech patterns are more like me. And they can also edit it after the fact. So I find that I may as well just get a lot of information out there instead of focusing on how I sound. Okay, so that's that. So let's move on. I don't want to go on and on about this. So I also saw that in that speech he gave, it said, after he said in heroic martial arts, he said something, he said the phrase holy, second word, jihad. What better way to stigmatize somebody than try to associate heroic and holy martial arts with holy jihad? Now keep in mind, this is where it gets very interesting. The word jihad, as was explained to me, it not only means holy war, right? It means a great effort for God. Like Muslim means one who's in submission to God. You see that wordplay there? See, I don't go to a mosque, or I believe it's a Mustafa. I don't go to any Muslim center. I don't pray to Mecca and so on and so forth. Okay? But I'm in submission to God. I'm not an Arab gentleman who's a falconeer, but a falcon is the type of martial arts that I do. That's how I describe the Royal African Falcon Martial Order, falcon. Okay? I do not follow the cult of ISIS or something, and I'm not in the terrorist organization known as ISIS. Okay? Also Daesh, right, to mean to trample. Trampling who? You're trampling women these days. And Isis is the mother of Horus in the Osirian myths, in the Osirian mythology of Horus, the son of Osiris. Not a coincidence. The falcon, the curved blade that's similar to the I believe it's called the Kopesh of East Egypt, the sickle-shaped sword that's often depicted in later depictions, with Horus. Later depictions of Horus. You had Jihadi John, and my Christian name is John, but though my Christian name is actually Jesus, but you get what I'm saying? What do you think that's a coincidence? Am I a terrorist, perhaps? Am I some ruffian who follows the New World Order? Am I a fool? No. I'm a man of honor and God, and I walk in the light like it says in John 3, so my deeds are exposed to everyone. As I said before, you all know me. You all know me whether you want to admit it to yourselves or not. The idea of me was there at God's right hand from the start. So, though I very much sympathize for the Palestinian people, like I sympathize with all oppressed people, according to their degrees of oppression, according to their struggle, with a fair and universal scale. I cannot support Hamas in a way that's immoral. Only in a way that is moral, which is by pointing them in the right direction. And I cannot unfairly just say that they're wrong, because in some ways, some of the things that they say and some of the things that they do are right, and in some very direct ways. I do not agree with October 7th. I don't think they should have done that. I believe that was a mistake. That was a fairly foolish mistake. I also don't believe that a people should be expected to just be pulverized by their oppressors and not respond at all. I do not believe in that. I do not believe in turning the other cheek in the way that a lot of people try to explain it. And they often cite Peter. Okay? They often cite when Jesus said to Peter, those who live by the sword, die by the sword. That's not what it's saying. You compare all the versions of what happened there. Okay? Where it says, in a different version, he says, should I not drink from the cup that this Father has set apart for me? That this Father has prepared for me? That was the problem. Violence on behalf of God is only problematic if you're incorrect about what God wants. And God wants you to be morally precise and obey God through me. And I have no intention of being violent. What for? How would it benefit the situation? If violence is the answer, then it is the answer. If it is not the answer, then it's not the answer. It's that simple. Judge correctly, judge accurately, remove the log from your own eye. What is the situation? The situation is if you use violence, they're just going to say you're a terrorist and you're not going to get anywhere. However, if you are around a mass murderer who's going to operate with impunity and is going to keep on killing, and the government won't bring you justice, what the hell do you think you should do? If it makes sense to take out that person, you do. Look at the case of, say, Hitler. His own generals tried to do what was the most stigmatized thing in Nazi Germany. They tried to kill Adolf Hitler. Why? Because they believed that he was a monster who was bad for the country, or perhaps they had an ulterior motive, but if you look at it as the first, right, as the former rather than the latter, their argument is sound. I do not believe that you should kill the President of the United States or any congressman, okay? But it's a mistake not to highlight these things and not to make these distinctions. It's pretty straightforward. The answer is nonviolent protest and rallying to me for the precise solution. The answer isn't to support Hamas in terms of, providing them weapons or money or Hezbollah or what have you. That's not going to get anywhere. I'm very suspicious of the spiritual leader of Iran, to say the least, like I am of everybody who's allowed to be a leader by the New World Order in this day and age. Again, no offense to anybody. These are the harsh facts. These are the reality. You think it's easy to say that if violence is the answer, it is? There's a lot of people who do not want me to say that. But that is the truth. That is the fact of the matter. There's self-defense. There's surgical strikes for God Almighty. And then there's terrorism and stupidity. To me, what terrorism is immoral warfare of any kind, really. It's being a Ascetian and it's terrorizing the world in the spirit of selfishness and greed. But if something is a just and righteous act, then it's a just and righteous act. And again, I tell you, I have no intention to be violent. And to my own risk, I even go as far as to say this to reassure humanity and overkill my point. I do not own any firearms myself. I do not own a gun. I don't own a fucking Derringer. I don't own a 6-shooter or 22. Nothing. But if I had my gun rights, I would own one. Because there's a lot of people who don't like me. And there's a lot of people who want to suppress me. And there's a lot of crazy people out there. Thank you.